So 5 years ago, I splurged on a Tesla Model 3.
I have a Tesla now. This is mine.
With the thought that the overall cost of ownership would be cheaper than a similar luxury sedan. Now that it's actually been 5 years, we can run the numbers and see which would be the smarter financial option. I also want to go over some issues I've had with the car. I feel like I got screwed. I try and not think about it because it pisses me off. And whether I would still recommend buying one today. So back when I was looking to buy this car, I was debating between a brand new Tesla or a used luxury sedan like a BMW or an Audi that was 2 or 3 years old. So that's what we're going to be comparing it to, because that's what I was actually going to buy instead. And so we're going to compare it to that and see if a brand new Tesla ends up being cheaper than a couple years used luxury sedan. So the amount I purchased a Tesla for was about $41,000. You've got $4,000 of sales tax on top of that, $500 in vehicle registration fees. And I did end up financing it. I paid it off early. But anyway, with the financing costs, that does add a few $1,000s. So the total cost of the car with the tax, the financing fees, all of that was about $50,000. If you buy it in cash in California, it's like $45,000 with tax. So the other kind of car I was considering will go with like a used BMW 3 Series, a couple years old. So in 2019, that would be a 2017 BMW 3 Series. These at the time were going for about $32,000. Sales tax adds on a few $1,000s. Registration's a few $100s. For the sake of comparison, let's say that I financed this as well, making the total $37,800. So the purchase price obviously is lower for a used car than a brand new Tesla, but there's a lot of Tesla related savings along the way to factor in here. The first one obviously being the tax rebates. Back in 2019, I was able to get like $6,000 in tax rebates. Federal rebate was about $3,000, and in California, I got an additional $2,500. So that's like $6,000 in savings off the bat.
One of the biggest expenses in car ownership is the fuel. Tesla estimates when you buy the car, you'll save about $5,000 over 5 years. But is it true?
The gas savings were indeed pretty significant. Over the course of the 5 years, I really only spent about $2,000 to $3,000 on electricity costs. And this is kind of how it breaks down. The first couple years, I really only spent $30 each month on electricity. I was living at a townhouse and I would just plug it into a normal outlet. Then I spent 1 year only supercharging. The cost for that electricity for the year would have been about $630, although I actually did get it for free because I had a bunch of supercharger miles from referring people. But for the sake of the comparison, we'll pretend I actually paid for it. I had a few more months charging at my townhouse in Washington for only about $30 a month. And now in LA, I've been paying $60 a month, just a flat fee to my apartment building to charge as much as I want. So in total, for the 42,000 miles I've driven, I've really only spent, my estimate is $2,250 on electricity. Now, when I totaled the gas equivalent cost to the same amount of miles, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So keep in mind with a BMW, you would have to buy the premium fuel, which is usually like 20 cents more per gallon. In LA, the average cost of gas will be like $5 a gallon. In Seattle area, $4.50 a gallon in the last 5 years. So I calculated it based on when I lived in those locations, and the total was $8,000. That's for 42,000 miles. Of course, in reality, it would be a little bit different than this number because gas prices are always fluctuating, but it would be somewhere around here. So the gas savings were pretty right on with what Tesla had estimated, and it indeed was about $5,814. That's how much I estimate I saved by using electricity instead of gas over the 5 years, which is quite a lot.
And one of the most overlooked costs is the insurance costs that you have with a Tesla versus a different luxury sedan.
Teslas are generally less expensive to insure than other luxury sedans because they're classified differently. They have a really good safety rating, so that does help. 3 years in a row, they were the safest car on the road. Compared to a lot of the luxury sedans are more classified as a sports car. Because of that, they end up with higher insurance rates. My insurance costs have actually fluctuated over the years because I've moved around a bit. This is kind of how it breaks down. The first 2 years, I paid $180 a month. When I moved up to Seattle for 2 years, it was only $80 a month. Like, car insurance is very cheap up there, actually. I came back to California and was paying $180 a month for 8 months, and then State Farm upped my policy $100 out of nowhere for no reason at all. I didn't get any tickets, wasn't in any accidents, nothing like that, but they upped it from $180 to $289 a month. When I saw that, I realized I could get a quote for Tesla insurance, and it ended up being $130 a month for Tesla insurance.
Although I think it's fair to note that the policies are a little bit different. Mainly the property damage coverage with State Farm is $50,000 more. So if you want to compare the policies, I'll leave them on the screen here so you can pause and compare.
That's the cheapest I've ever been able to get my Tesla insured in California. Like, that is a pretty big savings that you just don't even have access to if you don't have a Tesla.
So for year 5, I was still with State Farm for the first 8 months, and then I switched to Tesla insurance for the last 4.
The amount I've paid over the last 5 years in insurance has been about $8,000. Kind of a lot when you really add it up. Meanwhile, the used BMW I was looking at, even today, would be $300 or more a month to insure. That's over double what I'm paying right now. Over 5 years, that would have been $14,400. So just from insurance alone, I've saved $6,392 by having a Tesla instead of going the other luxury sedan route. It's a pretty significant savings. A lot of people forget to factor in. So as far as maintenance goes, I really only had to get new tires, and I just got the back 2 tires replaced. It ended up being $629 total. I feel like I probably should have just done all 4 tires at Les Schwab. That would have been like $1,000. I've seen people estimate it for only 800 places. Obviously, I don't have to get oil changes. With a Tesla, you also don't have to get your brake pads done as often because the regenerative braking is easier on your brakes. So even though I only paid $630, we'll just go ahead with typical maintenance and say $1,000 because I should have just gone ahead and gotten the 4 done. I'm gonna get the other 2. Had I gone with the BMW, by this point I would have gotten at least 5 oil changes, and on the low end that would be about $150 each. So that's $750 that I didn't have to spend on oil changes. The BMW wouldn't have regenerative braking, so I definitely would have needed new brake pads by now. On the low end, that'd be about $1,500 to replace. Again, it'd probably be even more than that if you go to an actual BMW dealer. Also, new tires, you know, that's just regardless of what car you're driving. You're not really getting around that, so we'll go with $1,000 for that as well. So the typical maintenance would have been about $3,000 for a BMW. However, I bet it would have been even more than this because remember, I would have been buying a couple years used BMW, so it's possible something could have come up. BMWs, Audis, all those cars are notoriously expensive to fix, especially if you take it to the dealer. A Tesla, we're saving a couple $1,000s in maintenance that you don't need to get. Those oil changes and those brake pads, it's a pretty decent savings. So the expected maintenance really isn't bad, but I have had one issue with my Tesla. I had to spend a couple $1,000s fixing. It's pretty much my biggest complaint I've had with the car. Basically, my autopilot stopped working and I had to spend $2,000 getting it fixed. My car was working totally fine. One day I software updated it, and then after that I realized my autopilot wasn't working anymore. Autopilot for my car hasn't worked in a couple days. I got out to wipe off the cameras again. Still doesn't seem to be working. I just started a factory reset of my car, which I don't know exactly what that's gonna do. It's gonna erase everything, but maybe it will bring autopilot back. I cleaned off all the cameras, hard reset the car like 5 times, and the autopilot still wasn't working, so I finally made a service appointment. They said they had to replace the whole computer in the car, which was $2,000 to replace. So they charged me to replace the computer. Then they told me that replacing the computer actually didn't fix it. The problem was still there. Apparently the wiring got messed up with one of the cameras, so they replaced one of the cameras, and they didn't charge me anything after that because they just charged me for the computer. That's how they decided to do it. Now, from what I understand in this situation, it wasn't the computer that needed to be replaced, it was just the camera, but they still charged me for the computer. They charged me for the more expensive fix, and that was frustrating. I felt like there was kind of nothing I could do about it. You know, I'm not an engineer. I don't really know how these things work, but I figure if replacing the computer didn't fix it, then that wasn't the problem. And fixing the camera I found online is cheaper to replace, only $500 to $600. So I was frustrated that they still charged me $2,000 to fix it. So I will say, had this happened under my 4-year warranty, they would have fixed it for free, but it was right after the 4-year warranty expired, so I had to pay for it. And there was just something that still feels feels off to me about this whole situation because why did it happen right after a software update? It's just a little fishy to me. I feel like I got screwed. I don't know. It was weird. I try and not think about it because it pisses me off. At the end of the day, I could still drive the car. It's not like the car was broken. The autopilot just wouldn't work. And there really aren't any other car companies with an advanced version of autopilot like this. So that was a weird situation. And if it happened to me, it could happen to you. If something happens with one of the cameras, one of the electrical parts of the technology, you might get charged quite a bit to fix it. Another thing in regards to unexpected maintenance, a lot of Teslas these days do come with issues like panel gaps, all these things that they shouldn't. They're covered under warranty, and if you take it in, they will fix it for you for free, but you have to know to ask for that because I took Sam's Tesla in. They tried to charge me for it. I stood my ground and was like, this is under the warranty. They did end up honoring that, but just know that they might try and skirt past the warranty thing. You need to bring it up. You need to be like firm that it's under the warranty. If there's any weird issues with the car in the first 4 years, they will fix it for free, but in my experience, they're not always jumping to do it for free. So let's take a look at the final total of the cost of ownership over 5 years for the Tesla. So the cost of the car after the rebates, but including taxes, registration, everything, was about $45,000. My maintenance was only $600, but I'm just gonna say $1,000. We'll just pretend I got all 4 tires fixed. My insurance cost over 5 years was about $8,000. My electricity fuel costs were $2,200. My unexpected maintenance to replace that computer was about $2,200, making the grand total $58,574 to own a Tesla over 5 years. Now let's compare it to the used BMW, which would have been about $37,000 for the purchase price, taxes, registration. Insurance would have been $14,000 after 5 years. Absolutely insane. Gas costs would have been about $8,000 after 5 years. Maintenance would have been about $3,000 on the low end. I'm really being nice here with this number. I feel like it would be more like 5,000, but we'll say 3,000, making the grand total cost of ownership of the BMW about $63,000. So my original theory was correct. It was cheaper overall to own a brand new Tesla than a used BMW. Like, you would think a used car would be cheaper than a brand new car, but not when you factor in the fact that insurance is cheaper and of course the electricity is cheaper than gas. It ended up being $4,769 cheaper to own the Tesla after 5 years. And what's interesting is the savings actually don't stop there because every year I still pay for insurance and gas, and every year it's still cheaper to insure and fuel up a Tesla than that BMW. And just this year, switching from State Farm to Tesla insurance, I'm saving $1,900 by doing that over the course of the year. And it's estimated I would have spent about $1,500 in LA on gas, and I'm only in reality spending $760 to my apartment to charge as much as I want. So in total over the next year, I'll save an additional like $2,600 and for years to come as long as I own this car, which is fully paid off now, by the way. So it's just cheaper overall, and the longer that you own it, the more savings that you see. So overall, it was cheaper to own the Tesla, but do I still recommend it? Like, do I still like the car after 5 years? Yes, I actually really do like it. I feel no need to upgrade my car because I get software updates and it's always getting better. Kind of like an iPhone, I don't feel like I need to go buy the newest model, whereas other cars I had owned, every few years I felt like my car was outdated and now I wanted a new one. I feel like the Model 3, the 2019 to the 2024, it's a little different. It looks a little different, but it's not really that different. And so I like that I don't feel like I need a whole new car. I still feel perfectly happy with this car. The one thing I have changed my mind on is the interior. When I first got it, I thought it was really luxurious and minimal, but now I do honestly kind of feel like it's a little cheap. Just the way that the plastic in the back so easily got messed up. And it's really loud in the car when you're on the freeway. You hear a lot of noise. Whereas when I did that brand deal with BMW, that car was so quiet. The interior of that car did feel way more luxurious. When I got back in my Tesla, I was like, oh, this feels like a toy. Don't get me wrong, I still like my Tesla, but I don't really view it as like that luxurious of a car anymore. The technology is amazing. The software on the screen, all of that is so far ahead of any other car brand, but the actual interior is not better. It's fine. I don't mind it, but it's definitely not as luxurious as BMW, for example. Like the one that I made the video with, that car inside was nice. So all in all, final thoughts, I do think buying a Tesla was one of the best purchases I've ever made in my life. It ended up saving me money overall, especially for years to come. Not to mention all the videos I made about it, like that changed my life. Like I got a whole new following of people. Even when I had the autopilot issue, I still didn't regret getting the car. I was still like, I still love this car. I want autopilot back and I'm willing to pay for it. My only qualm is really if you have to get your Tesla serviced. I don't know, there's just not as much transparency in the service department as I would like, and I kind of feel like I got screwed. So that is my overall review of having a Tesla 5 years later. If you are by chance looking to buy a Tesla, they offer $1,000 off now if you use someone's referral link. So I'll put mine down below. If you are gonna buy one and you want to get the $1,000 off, it'll be in the description. Okay, that's gonna be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.